first question then goes to Rene Tönnisson, which I kindly ask to join me on stage. Hello, Rene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome.
Hi. Hello, Rene. So the first question is really, as I said, on digital transition. So first of all, what are the key ingredients for supporting businesses on the digital transition?
Thank you, Elena, for the question. And let me first say that digital transition has been on European agenda on all levels already for quite some time. And significant progress has also been made. Also, still a lot of efforts needs to be put into this area, as the topic still remains of high importance for Europe and European member states. And I would like to bring in an interesting aspect related to COVID-19, that if there is one thing we can say something positive about COVID, it's the fact that it has had a strong positive impact on digital transformation in Europe. In some sectors, such as, for instance, retail and logistics, the COVID has significantly increased the pace of digitalization, but also in more traditional areas like manufacturing, there are clear changes happening, and we should kind of use the existing trend and not lose the momentum, and keep supporting the digital transformation, so it would really benefit and help to achieve those goals you were describing in your introduction. And if just directly answer your question, what are the key ingredients? And obviously, people often think that there's the first key ingredients is money, and money is very important. However, I would like to stress here that sometimes adequate guidance and support to companies is even more important than money itself. And the guidance and support is really vital in the current context where we are finding ourselves in one word's world of constant change. I mean, we have the technological change and changing business conditions, but then we also have such external conditions, for instance, like pandemic and recently war in Ukraine, which are all going to change significantly the overall business context. And that's why the guidance how to implement the digital transformation remains perhaps one of the key ingredients. We know that actually most of enterprises do know that that digital transformation is very important for them. However, they often lack understanding and experience how to implement it in practical terms, what are the first steps to be taken, and so on. And we believe at Europe Policy Learning Platform that we can actually help regions across Europe to provide this type of guidance, which is based on our good practices from different community members, and we can really make a contribution in the process of digital transformation.
Thank you so much, Rene, for this extremely interesting, I would say, elements that you touched upon. Indeed, those are all the challenges that policymakers have to face in these strange times, I would say. Do we have already, according to your knowledge, experience of the Interreg Europe community, do we have successful examples in this sense?
Sure, we actually have a big number of good practices and very relevant experiences to share from Interreg Europe community. It really goes from skills development to business support and sector-specific nuances. But perhaps as an example, I would like to mention our recent workshop on SMEs digital transition, where our community member from San Sebastian in Spain, who was representing the device project, spoke about how they have digitalized, say, retail and hospitality sectors. And what is interesting is that they are actually running complementary programs, which starts with awareness raising on digital training and transformation, and then continues with both technology consultancy provision and specific vouchers to help this happening. And to go into a bit more detail, they have awareness and digital training program, which aims to promote the digital business culture among local retail and hospitality companies. And the training program is noteworthy because it combines different formats, such as online training, for instance, but also then customized mentoring services, some roundtable discussion, focus groups, and other workshops. So it's an interesting combination of different tools and measures to provide like a holistic support. And I would like to encourage the listeners to revisit also our workshop recording if you want to find more details about the program in San Sebastian.
Okay, thank you. Indeed, a very interesting example from Spain. What about, I see on the slide, the project Cyber. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, that's another interesting example, actually, which comes from Brittany in France. And the Regional Council of Brittany, which is, as you mentioned, partner of Cyber, has implemented a specific support program addressing the need of companies to validate their digital innovation before they to validate and test it before they actually launch it to the market. And the key innovative component of this program is that the applicant SMEs need to involve in their application one user who will actually contribute to the development by testing the innovative solution. So it would be like validated by actual end user before it will enter the market. And it's also a good example in another way, namely what we support very much in Interreg Europe, namely as a good practice has been also considered for replication in Castilla-Leon region in Spain. So some of the elements have been taken over in this region, and that's also what we help regions to achieve in Interreg Europe policy learning platform, to replicate their existing practices, so you don't need to reinvent the wheel all the time. And I would like to say as a concluding remarks that there are actually many other examples available in our good practice database, and there are also a number of seminars and workshops. I already mentioned digital SME workshop, but another very interesting example I would invite participants to visit is webinar on Industry 4.0 infrastructure and employment, which also is directly related to the current digital transformation topic.
Thank you, Rene. And you can see on the chat, my colleagues are putting already the links for you to be able to access those recordings right now. I mean, after you have, of course, listened to the rest of our session, but everything is there available for you in just one click away. Thank you very much, Rene, for this. And we can move on to the second set of questions, which refer to the concept of circular economy. I would like to talk about this with my colleague Luc Schmerber. Hello, Luc, join me on stage. Hello.
Hello, Elena. Hello.
Hi. Hello. So circular economy, this is a very vast subject. We have already discussed a little bit about it yesterday from the perspective of environmental protection, valorization, of course. Today, instead, we look at it from the lenses of businesses. Look, how do you see indeed circular economy from this perspective to enhance the competitiveness of SMEs and other businesses?
Yeah, it's actually a topic of really high relevance in the policy agenda on all European levels. We see it already in the EU action plan for circular economy, where it's clearly stated that the circular economy is expected to boost EU competitiveness and create jobs. And it's also part of the European Green Deal, which includes the circular economy action plan. And maybe on a more practical level, in the new industrial strategy for Europe, it is focusing more and more on this business perspective of circular economy. So for instance, this new industrial policy forces that SMEs will be able to get support from the Enterprise Europe network, which will specifically appoint sustainability advisors to help SMEs to deal with circular economy and also further societal challenges from the business perspective. And obviously, we see it more and more also in the Interreg Europe project. We see that circular economy is not only addressed from the perspective we all know about already from the overall resource efficiency and the climate protection aspect, but also the driver for economic competitiveness, meaning that the SMEs which have circular business models are likely to be more successful than others in the long term. And we see different kind of measures already in our Interreg Europe projects. We can roughly group them into three areas, which would be the soft incentives, where we have different models of awards and certificates, and we have obviously also some financial incentives. Rene mentioned also that the financial support is needed, but not the first one. The soft incentives are important, and we have obviously also the regulatory frameworks which foster the move towards circular economy. But the regulatory frameworks, it's most relevant to the European and national level, and a little bit less on the local level. Also, there is also something to do.
Okay, thank you indeed. This is a very good, interesting overview. Let's go maybe then into the details of one or the other examples that we have in Interreg Europe. Could you mention any?
Yeah, of course. I would like first to mention that we had two webinars on the topic, circular transformation of businesses and financial instruments for the circular economy, which you can see on the slide, and the recordings and the presentations available. And there are many examples there. And maybe I would pick one out of them, which is the Ecolighter scheme from the city of Kristiansand in Norway. It's a scheme on a local level. It was mentioned in the GRESS project. The main idea, so this is a certification scheme, and the main idea behind the scheme was to make it easier for SMEs to become more eco-friendly and also in the same time increase the competitiveness through going through this voluntary certification. And the schemes covers different aspects of running a business. And it fits for most enterprises, for most industrial enterprises, because it has industry-specific criteria which are relevant to the Norwegian context. And it started in the 90s, from 96, from the city of Kristiansand. Then it became a foundation, non-profit organization, which was put together also with the central government, main trade organization, labor association. And now it's a national recognized format, and it's a standard, some kind of standard practice in Norway, with over 6,000 companies going to the certificate, and it's regarded as a complementary scheme to the European ISO and IMAS systems, which are well known, and it's used in public tenders. And so the scheme, the national success of the scheme speaks for its success, and it showed a really good impact on businesses, and especially for me, I think it's important to highlight that it showed that the move towards greener products and processes should and can go with an increase of competitiveness.
Okay, thank you. Indeed, a very interesting example. Just looking here, you mentioned earlier also, look in the 3 categories. You also mentioned financial incentives for SMEs. What can we say about that?
Yeah, there are many of them. First, of course, there are all the classical schemes, the voucher schemes that Rene mentioned for the digital transition. They are there for the circular economy. Maybe I could just highlight 2 schemes which are a bit different. The first one is the Circular Economy Investment Fund in Scotland, which is a fund set up by the Scottish government and which also receives European structural funds money to help accelerate the circular economy in the businesses in Scotland. And the fund invests 20 million as a grant funding to SMEs, and it looks to leverage private funding. It has already contributed to leverage about 30 million euro private investments, and it is expected that the projects funded will generate several hundreds of new jobs in the coming new years, with a huge visibility effect, of course, an incentive effect for all the companies to move. And it is docked to the Circular Economy Accelerator program in Scotland, which has already supported over 250 SMEs. So it's a huge effort in this region. And we had another one, the Stuttgart Climate Innovation Fund in Germany, and which is a different setup. It's a city fund, a local fund. It's about 30 million euro. And this is another idea. The fund builds on typical urban challenges like energy supply, mobility, urban planning, and it used the challenge as an anchor for innovation projects, which can be submitted and funded through the fund. And the specificity is that the solutions which are funded, they should be and they will be piloted and showcased locally in Stuttgart to create a high visibility around those projects. And the projects can be of technical nature, or they can relate also to consumers' behavior. So it's quite a broad approach to the circular economy, and also it is broad and not only targeted at SMEs. It showed that it's very, very relevant for SMEs and for startups, because they make almost 60% of the application. So that's quite interesting, and it shows also, like we had in Christiansen, the first model, that on the very local municipal level there is room for policies and to foster very directly the circular economy.
Thank you very much, Luc, for this. Again, a comprehensive information of interesting examples coming from the Interreg Europe community. Now, we turn to our, let's say, last part of this session, focusing on yet another element that is somehow linked to the concept mentioned on Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0. This is related to social entrepreneurship. We have a question coming from the city of Venice in Italy. They have asked us examples of how a local municipality can foster social entrepreneurship. Indeed, the human-centric approach that the EU is striving to bring to its industrial policy starts from the businesses that dedicate particular attention to their contribution to a more inclusive society. Mart, how would you react to this?
Yes, thank you for the question, Elena. So indeed, you are very correct. So the EU has been putting a lot more emphasis on the social economy in the last years, and most especially noteworthy as a milestone was the release of the Social Economy Action Plan at the end of last year, which is noteworthy because it really sets out the sort of agenda or the plan for the next 9 years on the Commission level. So the document that describes various actions related to state aid regulations regarding socially responsible procurement, about promoting social entrepreneurship, Also new methods to provide funding. So access to funding is a key element there. So many interesting sort of developments can be expected in the pipeline on the European level. And overall, considering the potential of the social enterprises to help build back better after the crisis and to bring out the sustainable and inclusive growth, then this development on the Commission level is very welcome indeed. And regarding municipalities, I would say that this is a policy on the Commission level, but certainly it sends a signal and can be an inspiration for municipalities to think how they could do more in this regard. And personally, I would say that local municipalities as such are very good, are very important stakeholders in the social economy. So they are important because social enterprises often are very local. So they are like local community organizations solving local challenges. And it only makes sense in this regard for the local government to be in a tight interaction with these organizations. So it could be just regular meetings to inform each other about the potential and the challenges for a specific subgroup of the populace, perhaps. But also it can take a more concrete form. So indeed, we see across Europe, there are various ways how municipalities have approached supporting social entrepreneurship. So for example, in some cases, you see favorable procurement towards social enterprises. Other times you just have some sort of a contract system in place. Grants are given by the municipalities. Sometimes municipalities guarantee some funding instrument, or then they provide trainings or even a center for social enterprises. So there are really a lot of different examples out there how municipalities support social entrepreneurship.
Okay, super. So can we name some example? Can we be more specific and look into some countries and see good examples for inspiration?
Sure. Maybe I would start from the policy side, and then later I can talk about a few practice examples as well. So, the one thing to understand is that the European ecosystem is quite diverse in this regard. So some regions have much more developed social entrepreneurship ecosystems that are sort of like ahead of the game. So they have had policies in place for many years already, and they've implemented various interesting things. Whereas for other regions, the European Commission's action plan is really the push to start developing their own policy. Also within our Interreg Europe community, we have 5 projects working on social entrepreneurship. And we as thematic experts, so together with my colleagues Luc and Rene, we have mapped these good practices and policy changes within the projects that you can find in our policy brief that we have recently released. And we've also had events on this. So for example, we had a webinar on how business support schemes for social enterprises can be set up. And getting more concrete on the policy level, then I would like to bring an example from Lapland, Finland, from this SOS and SPAS project, because they achieved to impact their local smart specialization strategy. So thanks to the people involved in the project and the work they were doing locally, they got also involved in the process of reviewing the strategy. And as a result, social economy was added as one of the focus areas in there. So this means that now in Lapland, development entities, whenever they are developing new plans or policies, they also consider social economy as an important sector. And another example I would bring from Örebro County, from Sweden, from the RAISE project. So they were a partner in that project, and they managed to impact the regional development strategy. So now, for the first time, their regional development strategy mentions social enterprises. And this is noteworthy because it means that the development strategy that is directly linked to co-funding of new projects, new calls for projects, and setting the goals of the region, it now considers social enterprises as well. So these are 2 interesting examples we have from our own community regarding the policies.
More than interesting, I would say excellent examples of the way Interreg Europe contributes to improving policies, making policy changes for social enterprises. Mart, maybe a few examples on concrete practices on the ground as well?
Sure. So I would bring an example from this PRESE project. So PRESE project is seeking to improve existing policy regarding social enterprises in border areas. And it's our fourth call project, which means it's still ongoing and it's still producing these nice examples on the ground. And I will highlight two of them. So first of all, from Slovakia, from this Banská Bystrica self-governing region, they have a very interesting policy or system in place, so that they are really seeking to solve local challenges with the social economy. And while there is a national policy regarding social economy, they in the region took it also as a strategic priority for themselves. And what this means is that they are dedicating financial and human resources on the topic. And in practice, it sort of comes out as free advisory services for social enterprises. They also have a regional brand for local social enterprises to promote them further. And very noteworthy, I would say that they also use social clauses in their procurement. And this is important because it opens up more opportunities for social enterprises to access public financing and to generate extra revenue. And often this is, for some social enterprises, it is very vital to get this access to additional funding from the public sector. So very, very interesting, very comprehensive, complementary practices are in place in this self-governing region in Slovakia. The second example I would like to bring is from Düsseldorf, Germany, the Impact Factory. And this is also an impressive support framework for startups that have a social or ecological goal. And what especially makes it stand out from some other startup programs is that they really have the potential for these startups to collaborate with corporate partners, which is very vital for first contracts and first deals for these companies. And also, there is no demand to give away equity in getting this support. So this is again important because social enterprises in the early stages, especially, often actually need to sort of protect their social mission of their founders, because giving away equity also means that you give away a bit of the right to say. So in an early stage, not giving away equity and still getting support can be important for social enterprises. And this Impact Factory, they also have other support measures in place. So they provide a co-working space, they provide both expert and technical support. So all these different things come together to really help bring these startups to a new stage of development. So I really encourage the listeners to look up both practices from our platform.